nobody on this road that can save your soul. Almost lost control now. Tell me what you need in a friend and now. Pray that we endure to the end again. I'm just saying that I'm here for you. When the world turn against you, I'ma be with you. Got my sword in my hand, you can count on me. I won't run and hide, fight mightily.
Waiting on your house shot. See the Jacob, I'm the apple of my father's eye. I learned the truth for who I was and it made me cry. If I don't keep the laws of Yah, then I'm gonna die. Living curses, but I'm edifying in my verses. Prepare the hearses for the heathens who be steady learning.
Gala Yahweh, Bashima Mashiach, Wamalak Yahushai. Shabbat Shalom family, Shabbat Shalom family. It is the brother Nehemiah Nakamaya in the Hebrew O.F.I General coming at you with another lesson on this mighty Shabbat. Man, it's really been on our spirit. Last night on our Sabbath call, we was in Tobit a little bit. We was also moving around through the spirit, showing the importance of building for our nation and brotherhood, sisterhood, and things of that nature. So, a lot of the times when we read certain accounts, we don't really realize all of the gems that the Most High God is dropping in those particular accounts, right? And we know, as it says, I got on the screen, the first precept, Romans 15:4, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope. So when we read these accounts and when we read these different precepts and these different scriptures, we should be reflecting on the jewels and the gems in them. Because just like a lot of times you might hear people out in the world, or whether you're out on the streets teaching, or you might be talking to certain family or whoever it may be, and they might say like things like, we not living in the Bible times no more. That was for the ancient days, or, what I'm saying, it's 2025 now. Like, why y'all still trying to live back in the old days? Well, that's not the case, because at the end of the day, everything that was written aforetime is for our learning. So we want to jump off, and I also want to get this Job 8:8 as well, because it tells us, the scriptures tell us to search out the former age of our fathers. For Job 8:8, for I inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers, right? For we are but of yesterday and know nothing, because our days upon earth are shadows. Shall not they teach thee and tell thee in other words out of their heart, right? So this is going into us being able to look and examine the things that have happened aforetime in the scriptures, and they should be things that are purely for our learning, right? So if we examine the book of Tobit, which is a mighty book in the Apocrypha, Salakia. Let me get Tobit. I'll start with 1 and 1. With Tobit, there's a lot of things to uncover and unpack in this book of Tobit. And so we're going to go over 9 gems and jewels that are in the book of Tobit that you could really take into account and really should be focusing on, because this is once again, these are for our learnings, things that we can apply today to understand how to be better Israelites, how to serve the Most High God better, how to care for our nation better, and so forth and so on. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Now, Tobit, a lot of people don't realize, was from the northern kingdom. He was from the tribe of Naphtali, and Tobit was very special in the sense that when most of his father's tribe had gone off and stopped going to Jerusalem to keep the feast days and were worshiping the heifer Baal, right? Tobit stayed 10 toes down. And although Tobit was righteous, he was still led into captivity. So that's another thing too. Every Israelite, because we always talk about how part of the curses, we have been led into captivity. Every Israelite that went into captivity wasn't wicked. Every Israelite that went into captivity wasn't not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God. So that's something that you definitely got to focus on and realize that you can be in captivity and still be striving for righteousness, right? And Tobit is a mighty example of that. Tobit 1:1, the book of the words of Tobit, son of Tobiel, the son of Enaniel, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabiel, of the seed of Asael, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Enemessar, king of the Assyrians, was led captives out of Thisbe, which is at the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali in Galilee above Asher. So we see Tobit was from the tribe of Naphtali. Look, I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and justice, and I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation who came with me to Nineveh and to the land of the Assyrians. Now, if you know anything about the Assyrian captivity, it wasn't just one tribe that went into captivity when it came to the Assyrians. So Tobit is talking about not only caring for his tribe, but caring for his nation. And you know, our command in general, when we teach, right, our at O.F.I at our camp, we focus on the tribes, but we teach broader as far as, you're an Israelite. Because at the end of the day, even with dealing with the 12 tribes chart through the spirit, there's no real emphatic way to know what tribe you're actually from. And what I mean by that is that, we can search out our forefathers. We could think that I'm myself, right? I think that I'm from the tribe of Judah, but I might actually be from the tribe of Gad, right? I might actually be from the tribe of Reuben. So it's nothing wrong with thinking what tribe you're from. However, as long as that you know that you are a child of God, that you are Israelite, that's really the more important thing, right? So we don't really get too caught up in tribe banging, but we don't get too caught up in as well as not allowing people or encouraging people to try to seek to find out what tribe you from through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, right? And to not get tied up on those endless genealogies of, trying to, y'all get it, Lord willing. So Tobit, man, caring for his nation is a very important thing. And this is something that we even see in Matthew, the 25th chapter, what Yahweh Shai was teaching us in terms of caring for our nation and our brethren, because our brethren are those who are of our same nation, which are the children of Israel. So I'm going to get this quick precept. Let's get Matthew 25 and 34. And we even see Yahweh Shai giving an example of the importance of caring for your nation, right? Because when you care for the body, when you care for the nation, when you care for the children of Israel, you're ultimately caring for the Most High God, because you're feeding his people. And there's many ways to feed the people. You may be someone who teaches. You may be someone who gives alms in the form of financial remuneration. Those alms may be in the form of spending your time. You may care for your nation by teaching them the law, statutes, and commandments. You may teach repentance. There's a lot of different ways to care for your nation. And we're going to go over those things in this particular lesson, right? But Yahweh Shai, this is red letter. We can see the importance of what Yahweh Shai is teaching right here in terms of even caring for your nation. The book of Matthew, chapter 25, starting with verse 34. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand. Now, mind you, you have the right hand, which goes into those who have been keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, having faith in Yahweh Shai, enduring for hope's sake. And then you have those on the left-hand side who have fallen away, who have been not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, who have been given over to the spirit of iniquity, the spirit of wickedness, right? And even some of those who plain out reject the doctrine and reject the Mashiach, woman like Yahweh Shai, and reject Yahweh ultimately, right? So come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And this is what Tobit is teaching as well. And these gems that we get from the account in the book of Tobit is ultimately we're striving to be able to make the kingdom. As an Israelite, your ultimate goal is to have faith in Yahweh Shai, keep the law, statutes, and commandments, have faith in Yahweh by Shema Mashiach Wamalak Yahweh Shai. So I have faith in the Most High God, Yahweh, right? Because Yahweh Shai is our king and our savior, but he doesn't even get the position of being over Yahweh. Nobody does, right? So you got to have a faith and love and belief and follow and trust in Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai, right? Keeping the commandments, which goes into loving your brother and care your sisters as well and caring for your nation. So ultimately, these things should position you to, Lord willing, make the kingdom. That's the ultimate goal as an Israelite, right? For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Now, all of these things are, all of these actions are examples of good works, right? Of making your works, of showing your fruit, right? What fruits you're bearing. Good works that we should be doing for our nation. Now, you don't got to do this for other nations, and you shouldn't be focusing on doing this for other nations, right? Now, is it a sin to do this for other nations? No, we don't see that in the scriptures. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that your mother is of another nation. Obviously, you commanded to love your mother like and honor thy mother and thy father. So from that perspective, or let's say like I have a sister who's actually is damn Ammonite, right? Now, I love my sister and I may do things for my sister, but she's not of my nation. We have two different fathers. You follow what I'm saying? So just as a quick example, but naked and ye clothed me, I was sick and ye visited me, I was in prison and you came unto me. Now, Pete, this is Yahweh Shai saying these things about the people who are at the right hand of the Father. Now, peep game. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee in hunger and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? So they kind of tripping, like, hold on, Yahweh Shai, like, we ain't there. When did we see you naked and we clothed you? When did we see you sick and we, took care of you? We administered medication, we administered care, and we brought you soup, whatever it may be. When did we see you in prison and come visit you? We never did these things, right? And look what Yahweh Shai said. And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. So Tobit is teaching the same thing that Yahweh Shai is teaching as far as caring for your nation. You should definitely be caring for your nation, right? So moving on, let's go back to this book of Tobit, right? Chapter 1. And so this is what Tobit is teaching in terms of caring for his nation, but I actually want to go to verse 16. Right, start with verse 16. Bam. All right, Tobit 1:16. And in the time of Enemessar, I gave many alms to my brethren, and gave my bread to the hungry, and my clothes to the naked. And if I saw any of my nation dead, or cast about the walls of Nineveh, I buried them. So you got to think about this, the spirit that Tobit was moving in. And he feeding brothers and sisters, and he giving alms deeds, right? Which goes into charity, which goes into love, right? He's giving bread, he's clothing the naked, and the brother was burying the dead. Like, if that's not showing love to your nation, I don't know what is. Putting his life on the line too at that, because if we read in verse 18, it says, and if the king Sennacherib have slain any when he was come and fled from Judea, I buried them privately. For in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king. So you got to think Tobit was putting his life on the line because he was burying the dead of his people. Now that's true love. That's true sacrifice. That's true dedication. That's having a spirit of Yahweh Shai, caring for your nation, right? And it's the same thing that we just saw in Matthew, the 25th chapter, 34 on down, where we see Yahweh Shai saying what the righteous would do, the works that the righteous would be doing to care for their nation. And look, verse 19. And when one of the Ninevites, the heathen, you know, the heathen always damn complaining, right? Went and complained of me to the king that I buried them and hid myself, understanding that I was sought for to be put to death. I withdrew myself for fear. So Tobit was, he was stirring stuff up. They wanted to put Tobit to death for taking care of his nation. And we even see that same spirit with the heathen today. They don't like, they hate when we love each other. Really think about that, y'all. The heathen hate when we love one another. They rather us killing one another. They rather us purporting and perpetrating, portraying Salakia, portraying in our music, in our culture, right? They rather us having broken households. And they rather you be left for dead. They don't want you to be encouraging your brothers and sisters in righteousness. You got to think about this. You, as a so-called black Hebrew Israelite, as they call us, which is madness because we're not only for the so-called black man and woman and child, and we for the so-called Hispanic of Native American, of indigenous descent. We for the so-called Caribbean, right? We're for the so-called South American, and we for the so-called Native American. We're not just for the so-called black man, woman, and child. But you, as a being purported as a so-called black Hebrew Israelite, you are a threat. You're not a threat when you a nigga out there in the streets. You're not a threat when you a damn nigga woman popping and twerking and jiving and shucking and a toxic culture and fighting, and you're not a threat to them. Then you're not a threat when you're not a father, right? And I'm not talking about being a dad just laying with a woman, having a child, and then damn getting out of there. You're not a threat then. But as soon as you do this, soon as you put some fringes on your garment, soon as you open up these scriptures right here, and you open up the book of the law and you read, and the Most High begins to sup with you because you supping with him, and he's pouring into your spirit, and you coming out of the ways of the world, now you're a threat to them. When you come out, when you wake up and stop going by being a byword, and you start caring for your nation, you start examining the things that are going on in the world, and you start rejecting the ways of the world, you're now a threat onto society, right? When you start telling your people, hey, y'all got to come together in righteousness, right? Y'all got to come together as an Israelite and worship Yahweh by Shema Mashiach, woman like Yahweh Shai. And you got to stop hating your brother in your heart. You got to care for your nation. You got to care for your family. You got to raise up your children in the way that the law, statutes, and commandments commands them to. Now you're a threat, my boy. Now you're a threat, sister. Now you're a threat, brother. And now you're a threat, elder. That's what the heathens want. That's when they that's when they start complaining about you, right? Before then, they don't care. You know, they expect you to be a damn nigga woman. They expect you to be for my so-called Latinos and Native Americans. And they expect you to just damn worship Virgin Mary and be in Catholicism, right? And be joined unto the so-called white man, right? But as soon as you start breaking those yokes of bondage through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you have now become a threat, and they will seek to destroy you. So you got to realize caring for your nation is a vital jewel that's being taught in the book of Tobit, right? Caring for your nation. All right. And that's something that you want to continue to do. So moving on. The importance of alms and charity as well, right? And we're going to get, let me see, That's Tobit 4 and 7, the 4th chapter, right? Bear with me, y'all. Tobit 4 and 7. So we're going to go to the 4th chapter. We're going to skip around a little bit here, right? Tobit 4 and 7, right here. It's the book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 7. I'm going to start with 6. For if thou deal truly, thy doing shall prosperously succeed to thee and to all of them that live justly. And this goes back to that Matthew 25, where Yahushua was teaching, this is what the righteous shall be doing, right? Living justly. And when we go back to that, to Tobit 1 and 1, notice that Tobit said that he had lived with all justice all of the days of his life, right? So from that perspective, verse 7, give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, let not thine eye be envious, neither turn thy face from any poor, and the face of God shall not be turned away from thee. If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little. For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity, because that alms do deliver from death, and suffereth not to come into darkness. For alms is a good gift unto all that give it in the sight of the Most High. Now, when you think about this, right, going into giving alms, alms goes into charity. And we even see that in terms of that word, that charity can go into agape, which goes into love, right, which goes into being a cheerful giver as well. So you want to have a spirit, and giving alms goes back into the first jewel that we brought out, caring for your nation. You should chiefly be giving alms to those of your own nation, right? Like if I see the heathen, I try not to give the heathen anything. They let their nation take care of them. We got to be focused on our nation, man. So you should be giving alms to those of your nation. You commanded to give alms to those of your nation, right? And we see that mighty example that Tobit was doing. And even those alms went into what we brought out in that first chapter when he was even burying people. Tobit wasn't going around charging people to bury him, right? You do know that what is it called? Funeral home, not what is it called? Morticians and things of that nature are having a funeral ceremonies and things. That's not something that's just modern. That was happening in the ancient days as well. You had different people who had, who made money off of preparing bodies and things of that nature for burial. Whether it's wrapping them in the cloth, whether it's selling the cloth, whether it's digging, the holes, whether it's selling land or having portions of land for, as they call it, like a sepulcher and things of that nature. But Tobit wasn't charging his brothers and sisters for that. So that even went into giving alms, right? And notice that when it says in verse 9, when the Lord says, for thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity, what that's going into is that you're blotting out transgressions through your righteous acts by Shema Mashiach Womalak Yahushua. And that's what we seek to do. We didn't sin so much. I know me, I've been in the truth for about 5 years now, right? Give or take. I'm 39. So I came into the truth about 34 years old. And if you think about before I came into the truth, that's 34 years of just straight wickedness and sinning. So I've stacked up like hundreds of millions of sins, I'm led to believe. You know what I mean? Straight up and down. You got to think 34 years. I had calculated this one time. It's so-called, I'm going to calculate it again. So-called 52 weeks in a year, right? So just if you think about 52 weeks and it's a Shabbat every week, right? So 52 times 34, that's 1,768 Sabbaths. So just alone, that's 1,768 Shabbats that I broke. Just not of keeping the Sabbath day. Not even including all of the various ordinances on the Sabbath day that I broke. Not including all of the new moons, Like it's just when you really think about it, it's wild how much like iniquity that we've partook in, that we've been partakers in. So in that verse 9, when the Lord says, "For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity," it's about trying to have righteous works to blot out those transgressions. So I want to get that. Let me get my notes. It's book of Deuteronomy 15 and 7 through 11. Let's go in the law, right? Let's go in the law. Deuteronomy 15, 7 through 11. Right. And here is going into, and we can go into Proverbs, the 19th chapter as well. And this is showing that like the importance of alms, because what Tobit is also showing you is how he was keeping the law, how Tobit was keeping the law, because we see in the law we're commanded to give alms. So Deuteronomy 15 and 7, if there be among you a poor man of one of thy brethren, and notice it keeps harping on of one of thy brethren, the fellow Israelites. It doesn't say one of thy own, of thy same tribe. That's why in Tobit 1 and 1 he talked about also of his nation, right? Poor man of one of thy brethren within any slaki of thy gates in thy land, which the Lord Yahweh thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not harden thine heart, nor shut thine hand from the poor brother, from thy poor brother, but thou shalt open thy hand wide unto him, that's giving alms, and shall surely lend him sufficiently for his need and that which he wanted, right? Beware that there be not a thought in thy wicked heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, is at hand, and thy eye be evil against thy poor brethren, and thou givest him not, and he cry unto the Lord Yahweh against thee, and it be sin unto thee. So this goes back into that Tobit 4 and 9, which we was bringing out as well, or really 7 on down, is that in terms of, saving up, basically stacking up your righteous works, so on that day of judgment, you don't have wicked works, outweighing your righteous works, and then the Most High rejects you and you don't get the kingdom. So giving to the poor, we actually see that it's in the law, and you got to give to your brother and your sisters, right? And when it goes into that year of release, going into the year of Jubilee, chiefly or the 7th year where debts, or the year of release would be where debts are forgiven, because you got to think of how Israel is. You don't want to be in that mindset where you giving only to receive, and you like, dang, you know what? It's about to be the year of release. I can't lend nothing to nobody this year, because I ain't gonna get it back. You don't want to be in that spirit. That's a wicked spirit to have. Says verse 10, and it reads, thou shalt surely give, and thy heart shall not be grieved. You got to be a cheerful giver. You shouldn't be giving with a reproachful mindset. You giving, I'm regretfully, I'm gonna give you this, but I don't really want to give it. You want to be in the proper spirit, and we see that in the law as well. And we see that mighty example in the book of Tobit. Tobit was a cheerful giver. He wasn't giving and regretting what he had given, because the Most High God has also blessed him to be in a position to give, right? And not be grieved when thou givest unto him, because that for this thing Yahweh thy God shall bless thee in all thy works, and in all that thou puttest thine hand unto. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore I command thee, saying, thou shalt open thy hand wide unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in thy land. Now, it's something too contextually here that you don't want to get caught up in saying, well, look, this only says in thy land. So when we not in our land, we ain't got to keep this law. That's not true, king or princess. That's not, you shouldn't have that mind frame, because as we even saw with many mighty examples, even in the book of Tobit, right? They weren't in his land. They weren't in the land of Israel. Remember, they got taken into captivity. And we have to be rehearsing the righteous acts. We see that in the book of Judges, I believe That's the 15th chapter, if I'm not mistaken, Salakia. But in the book of Judges, rehearsing the righteous acts, right? So this is something else that we see. And let's get the book of Proverbs. I believe it's the 19th chapter, around verse 7, maybe. Oh, bam. The book of Proverbs, chapter 19 and verse 7. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go afar from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him. So you don't want to be in that spirit too, where you hating and you rejecting a brother or sister because of they're in the lowest state, right? You don't want to be in that you don't want to be like that, right? And let's jump to verse 17 as well. 1 second. Bam. This is what you want to be in this spirit. He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto Yahweh, and that which he hath given will he pay him again. So also knowing and considering that when you lend unto the poor, you're actually lending unto the Most High God. And that's why when we saw in the law in the Deuteronomy, how it said that the Most High God will reward you and will pay you back, multifold, right? So it's a situation where you don't want to put yourself in a trick bag where you're not moving in sincerity, even with your alms, where you're only lending to receive something. You want to truly, Lord willing, be moving in the spirit and things of that nature from that perspective. Next, what Tobit teaches us is the dangers of sin, right? The dangers of sin. And when you think about and what is that? That's Tobit 12. Salaki. I think we'll start with verse 8. All right, bam. Tobit 12 and 8. Prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. A little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. It is better to give alms than to lay up gold. So I want to harp on this right here. A little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. So Tobit is teaching you it's very important to keep the law, statutes, and commandments and have faith in a Mashiach woman like Yahushua, because that's the only way to be righteous. Okay. If you're not keeping the law, if you're not striving for righteousness according to what the scriptures teach you as an Israelite, then you're damn near done. Straight up and down, right? It's righteousness or it's unrighteousness. So you want to be moving in that spirit of righteousness, right? And that's what Tobit is teaching here, right here, in terms of being righteous. For alms doth deliver from death and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life. Shalom, princess. What's going on? Daddy will be back up. I got camp soon. I'm just finishing the lesson, okay? Okay. Do 3 o'clock prayer with mommy, okay? Okay. How about that? I'll see you in a minute when I come upstairs. Okay? All right. So you want to be in that spirit of moving in righteousness. You don't want to be in that spirit where you are, giving over to wickedness. So Tobit is also teaching the dangers of sin, the dangers of not moving through a righteous spirit, right? And when you look here, right, you got to know, and let's get this real quick. Let's get the classic, that 1 John 3 and 4.
Adam and Eve on your 2 kids, 7:15 inappropriate, and I turned it off.
Okay, all praise to the Most High.
And I was like, why you have this on YouTube Kids?
All praises. Well, go back and watch Lions Kids instead, okay? All right. So 1 John 3 and 4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. So when we go back to this Tobit right here, right? If you don't look, if you don't, the only way to be righteous is to keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God, keep his charges. So if you're moving in sin, that is moving in unrighteousness. So it goes hand in hand from that perspective. So Tobit is also teaching the dangers of sin and the dangers of not being righteous, right? Salakia, let's get that what I want. Let's get Proverbs, was that 14 and 34. Let's get Proverbs 13 and 34 through 35. Dang, did I spell it wrong? Proverbs 14 is lucky, and 34 through 35, I believe, is what I want. Bam. Righteousness exalted the nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. All right. So you want to think about that, right? Sin is a reproach to any people. So you don't want to be breaking the laws of the Most High God, but righteousness exalted the nation. And this is what we're trying to do as God's chosen people, as the chosen nation of Yasha Allah, is we're trying to be exalted. We're trying to get out of this lower state that we're in, right? We're trying to get out of this captivity. So in order to do that, in order to get our nation exalted back to that top, because y'all know we the top nation, but we the top nation at the bottom right now. So in order to be exalted back, there's steps that we have to take. We have to do a process of reclamation. And it's funny because when you think about a lot of like these other doctrines, like the Moorish Science Temple, or like a lot of the people who are in that school of thought, right? They talk about reclamation, reclaiming back your birthright, reclaiming back your status, as they call it, status correction. That's not going to do anything if you're trying to reclaim back your status to be called a Moor, and you're not a damn Moor. And furthermore, you got to go to Esau's court system to declare who you are, and they have to recognize who you are. The Most High God didn't prescribe us to do that. So in order to reclaim our status and be exalted back to the position that we truly are as a nation, we have to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments and your identity as an Israelite, right? And that's the only way that we're going to be exalted as a nation and get out of these captivities, and to have our king, Hamashiach Yahushai, right, the righteous, rule over us, right, in the name of Yahweh, and guide us back to being that top nation where every single nation and world power is going to fall. And we see that happening now, right? You see America declining. You see China declining. You see all of these nations, as we are on the brink of World War III, declining, right? So with that, I definitely planned on going through all 9. We got through 3. I guess I'll be doing, Lord willing, a part 2 of this, right? Most High willing. I definitely got to get ready for camp. Ran out of time a little bit, so Salaki on that. But all praise to the Most High God, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Lord willing, this was edifying through the Spirit. Shabbat Shalom. Kwam Yashala.